And I want to give a shout out to one of my viewers named Scott today for linking me a video in Discord um, about how to retrieve my Garo mount. And I am very pleased with the first one. I'm going to be trying for my second one. I don't know if I can get my third one. I will be attempting to do such before it. Here it is, my first Garo mount. 10 frontline victories. This will go away with the 5.0 update for Final Fantasy 14. And I must say, I am very pleased with the results. You know, I'm not usually a big fluff person, but given the fact that the mount was limited, I really enjoyed grabbing this one up. It is definitely was well worth getting into and grabbing this mount. Now, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead. I don't like necessarily the PvP much in this game. I feel like there are a couple of things that could be addressed with Final Fantasy 14 and the PvP system. I will say that, but overall, I am happy with these mounts, just because it is kind of nice. The animation looks really good. You know, definitely metallic. It definitely has a nice sound effect. The silver, you know, the black one looks badass. I'm not going to say the black one doesn't. It's more of a grind. The gold one looks pretty good too. I feel like for me personally, if I'm getting the gold one, that's what I'm pushing for. I would be more selective, or you know, which characters I can utilize it for. But the silver and blue one, just simply amazing. It is stunning. You know, it is really good. Now, what's going to PvPing on my PS4, I've been trying to keep kind of familiar with a lot of the things here. Okay. Now, you don't need to do ranked matches if you don't want to for Feast. But Feast, you have to have 30 wins. I'm currently at 14. I'm almost halfway there. And I feel like once, we'll see how these matches go. Once I get maybe to 40, maybe the 60 won't be as bad. I do have a couple more weeks to grind this out. And it is a grind, especially with some of this PvP. Like the PvP, it has potential. It's mind-numbing at times. See, they're on our healer. Once that healer goes, see what I'm saying? It's all over. And you'll see them, they just keep attacking the... It all comes down to one class, and that's the healer. That is the fucking healer. If the other DPS isn't on him, you're fucked. You're just screwed. You're all screwed. Focus me, they got me. You have a weak healer, it's over. Game over. I think that's what bothers me so much about this game. And you got to pull back. You got to know when to pull back. Didn't turn out to be as bad as I anticipated. Still, we lost. It's a good way to also level ults. But getting adjusted to those ults in PvP can be sometimes a little bit more of a burden than anticipated. One thing I don't like about the Dragoon is trying to get the buff. Shit's moving around so fast. Get that extra 10% damage would be nice, but the problem of it is targeting and trying to stay within that 12 meters. Because once you break that, it's on cooldown, and then you're screwed. So it's nice if you can manage it, if you can get it off, but at the same time, be a little realistic about expectations about trying to get that chain buff on. A Dragoon has a lot of mobility for a melee, though. Once again, really nice mount. Really happy with how this mount turned out. Definitely going to be, you know, getting my Dragoon. I'd like this helmet for the Dragoon. I want to get like a silver and maybe blue looking gear, more gear for the Dragoon on this mount, just because I really do like it so much. The animations look amazing. Typically, I don't like a lot of the horse mounts in this game. I feel like the proportion is a little when it comes to the steeds, but surprisingly enough, for this mount, they did a better job with this particular mount. All the other mounts kind of look good, like the Chocobo looks good. The car mount, I know a lot of people are kind of iffy about it. I like the look of the car. I like a lot of other, like some of the wolf mounts, but a lot of the steed mounts I typically don't like because of the way the body looks. But because this has a metal appearance and it's mechanical, it works well. The gallop sound looks really good. The animation is really just well done. Trotting, running. So you see the difference even in the trot. They did such an amazing job with this mount. So I am more than happy that I had to go through PvP to get this bitch. Like I said, PvP has potential, but it's one of my least favorite elements to Final Fantasy XIV. There's a lot of things I like about the game. Love the dungeons, love the jobs, the diversity, the application applied to every job. But PvP has issues because some minor things, like almost unkillable healers. If a healer knows what he's doing, he's almost a god. Everything is centered around that job. So everything is centered around one job, and it makes it kind of hard to really assess how good the PvP is, or some of the things that could be adjusted, because one job is so fundamentally anchored. Everything's anchored around one job. If that player is flawed, then there's your weakness. If the player is strong, then that's your strength. Everything hinders just on one specific so much, and it can be a very frustrating aspect to the PvP in this game. But at the same time, if you get players who can eliminate that role as quick as possible, it makes winning that much easier. And that's another sad statement within itself, that the other classes can't sustain without it. They can't survive without the healer. I'm all for you know, different classes or different jobs playing more pivotal specific roles, but you need, in PvP, players have to have some sort of self independence, some independence to be able to, make strategic calls, and without that, you're hindering the element of PvP. God dang it. Fall back. Victory. Got it. 3 kills, 1 death. Not the best damage, but at least I played in position. The machinist did an awesome job for my team. Really good. Surprisingly enough, the Bard actually had a lot more damage than all of us, but our healer just was a little bit better. Once again, it just goes to show how crucial one job is. Now I'm still like getting adjusted to the Bard, or I mean to the Dragoon. The Dragoon, like I said, it is a lot different. You know, like the Bard, it does have it's a support DPS, and trying to get, like I said, the buffs. You know, you got to target. Like, I honestly wish they would have made the ability where it's the closest, like have a smart targeting system versus like manually targeting, especially on a controller. Because in the heat of combat, you really are kind of like, you know, meddling around with the control functions. Well, even on a keyboard and mouse, I feel like there are a couple things that could be kind of taken. But yeah, I'm totally feeling this mount. Graphically, it's just amazing. It is a very nice looking mount, in my opinion. Some people might not like the style. I thought it was amazing. I mean, so we even have like a metal teeth. Okay, then when I go to achievements, that's the one I'm working on. I need 15 more wins in Fatal Feast, then I'll get the golden one. Then I need a total of 60 in the black one. I don't know if I'll get the Ragoa, the Rago, Rago. I don't know if I'll get that one in time. But this is my next goal, is to get the Goten. Once again, I want to thank Scott for, you know, hooking me up with that video. It was much appreciated. Much appreciated. Overall, though, very happy with this mount. It was a pain. PvPing in this game can be a pain in the butt. Like I said, I think the fundamentals are here. I don't have a problem fundamentally with the game. It's objective based, so in its battleground, system, which is great because it has strategic elements to it. But the problem, your team's doing something and you want to make a strategic move. If two of you go and you face a healer in any other class, it doesn't matter, you lose. You lose because you don't have enough DPS typically to take out one healer, even with two DPS classes. That to me is where the fundamental problems lie. It's like, I don't have a problem with healers healing. I have a problem when you can take two DPS and you still can't beat him. That tells me, like, hold on, wait a minute, what the hell? How can you make strategic moves with a small unit, right? When one job is going to lock you down. One job. And it's like, I don't care about balance. That's not the issue. It's like counterplay, as long as you have proper counter measures, you're usually fine. Like in this game, you have a CC effect. We have a break free ability, or if you're slowed down, it doesn't hinder you from stopping you from attacking. It just slows you down. Your stuns last maybe a second. You can still break free. There's proper counter. To me, that's not overbearing. There are going to be players who are a little bit more have more proficiency at certain jobs than others, and they're going to be able to utilize the benefits of those jobs effectively. And I get what people would typically say, well, what's a healer supposed to do? I'm not saying that healers shouldn't heal. What I'm saying is healers shouldn't be unkillable. It comes down to that. And people will be like, they're killable. You just need 3 or 4 people on them. Or you need to, focus them down and know when to CC. And that's all great. It's all great. But I've literally been there where one healer was like on the brink of death. One heal brings them completely, to max. That to me says, whoa, wait a minute. This is overhealing its capability. Like, the healing's not scaled effectively to a person's maximum amount of health or HP. And that's why they're so overbearing. So just my experience, take it for what it's worth. Like, is there a problem with the game functions? No. Some ones I don't care for more than others. Frontlines is amazing. The Feast, I love the Feast. The way it's like, okay, here you have DPS, here you have a tank, here you have a healer. And that all plays very important roles. So, great, awesome, excellent. But, once again, and I could probably go tank and get faster Q times as well. That's another thing. If you play a healer or you play a tank, you can typically get faster Q times. But the question of it is, it comes down to, it needs to be adjusted. Little things like that need to be adjusted. Not a lot, just finessed. And the game will do better. It'll incentivize it, man. Like, right now, the only reason I'm PvPing, the only reason why, because I want these mounts. Other than that, there's no incentive there. There's nothing really to push for. But this, to me, is something to push for. Why? Because it's limited time. It's like, it has a limitation on it. I'm not going to be able to go back and, do this content to get this. So typically, I don't give a shit about fluff. If it's in the game and it's always going to be there, who gives a shit? But when you say limited time, you only have X amount of time to acquire, it incentivizes. It's like, oh shit, now here you have incentives. Same thing with the feast in the seasons. They have limited time, rewards. But does that, benefit the casual player? No. So you need to get more casual players involved in PvP in between time. So how do you do that? You offer long-term incentives. You offer something that they can acquire over a longer period and acquire at their pace. And this way they can do their PvE content, queue up for PvP as they want to, and then down the road they have something that they can acquire. Like this being as long term as it was, had I started this game a year ago, I would have PvP'd not as frequently, but I would have PvP'd enough to acquire these mounts given the time frame. So it was a long term goal. It's a long term, incentive for players to PvP. And you have to think about that. You have to think short term, how to get people in, PvP right here and right now because it's limited. And then you got to think long term, how to keep casual players involved in PvP. Once you can utilize both elements effectively, you're going to get better results for queue times. And once again, I have stated this, I will reintegrate this, but the duty system to be able to queue for only one type of PvP match is a hinder for this game. Also, and I would like to see sometime in the near future, is being able to queue multiple roles, right? So you can, like, say your feast, you're going for a feast. Say you want to play a support role, but you would rather DPS. Why cannot make it so you can queue both? So if the tank role comes up and you're comfortable playing a tank in the feast as in PvP, you can get faster queue times. Same thing with queuing the feast and say front lines, or rival wings all at the same time. Why? It increases the speed in which the queue system is proccing. So having a multi-queue system works in your behalf. They already have it because we already see that in the PvE where you can queue up to 5 dungeons. You can't queue dailies that way, but dungeons you can. Don't know how you go from one Winterland to whatever. I love the background of the graphics, the skyline. It is amazing when you're flying in this world. It's the fog. Look at that. It's simply amazing. Not being controlled, being let go, just cued, get to enjoy the scenery, kind of cut back and enjoy it. Um, Moogle home. A lot of really cool. I'm so glad I got to go on this journey. I wonder if I have this one. so many really cool things about this game. Sea of Clouds, I really like this area too. This is amazing. A floating continent. Just I love the different elements how they play at night, during the day. I love, the rain's a little at times, but the environmental elements amazing. It's the funny thing about it is I've played a lot of MMOs, a ton. And the nostalgia for most players is, having to go through certain areas. Like you can remember those areas that you spent a lot of time in farming something, doing dungeons or whatever. You remember the times that you spent in an area. It builds a nostalgia with you. A specific zone, specific content. What I feel that Final Fantasy XIV brought to me in this short period of time is an experience as a whole. It's not one element that makes me appreciate this game. It is, or gives me that nostalgic feeling. It's the embodiment of everything that it represents within the story, within the time, the because you don't spend a lot of time in Final Fantasy 14, going over the grind or spending that and building that traditional nostalgia. No, instead what you get is a story that you progress and you remember when you had to be at this area at that specific time, or when you had to go here and you had to be there. And then when you go throughout the world, of the different parts of the world of Eorzea, you realize that it's just a small piece of what Final Fantasy XIV embodies. So you're here for a purpose. You're here to get a function for to feel it out and get to experience it for only a few levels. But then when you go back through and you have to farm it for like materials and stuff, you're like, oh man, this is just so beautiful. I don't have to spend hours grinding in one area. I don't have to do that. I can just, play the content, enjoy it, and if I want to go back and I want to do fates and I want to go do this, okay, cool. Okay. I'm gonna pull back, trying to target me down. Got it. Not a lot of kills, you know, in this game, but 2-0. I'll take it. See, like looking at this, that like to me they have the advantage, but we have a bard, so we have two support DPS. But the ninja is going to deal. The ninja and the red mage deal a nice amount of burst damage, but the red mage is very, very squishy. So and what's nice, once you hit level 30, you can take your tunes in here. You have access to all the PvP abilities at level 30. Okay, I gotta pull back. They're trying to target me down. I'm gonna focus on the red mage, because I know he's squishy. Victory. Wow. That was really good. Quick and smooth. They were like, fuck this. Red mages hit hard, but the thing about it is they're very squishy. So it's like red mages have to stay. That's their strength, though, is their mobility. So if you can isolate the red mage away from the healer and get two people on the red, boom, it's over. But once again, you don't want to get hit by the red mage either. Fuck that. Those motherfuckers hurt. Okay. It's got quite a bit. I mean, I do have quite a bit to go. Especially for this one. But you got to think, like, once I acquire this, so once you have 40, once you get that. So you only need 20 more wins. So it's like, it has, once you get to a certain point, you're like, can I get it? Can I get it? Yeah. But can I get it in time now is the question for me. That's easier said than done. These two are very achievable before Shadowbringers releases, before 5.0. So these two are, achievable. It'll frustrate you if you're not big in PvP. But if you want the mounts, just get with the class you're comfortable, get with the job you're comfortable with in playing. Keep to the basics. If you can stick to the fundamentals in PvP, you'll be okay. But one of the major things that you got to do is get your target separated from the healer or isolate the healer to DPS them down. Because if you don't, and keep your CCs. So when you see the healer getting ready, he's low on health, he's going to cast the big heal. That's when you want to throw your knockback. That's when you want to throw your interrupt. That's when you want to throw your hard CC. Why? To keep him from healing that big heal. Once you can do that, boom, you're on top of him. Overall, yeah, I am way more than happy. Got a really cool looking mount, really good animation, beautiful graphics. Even as a silver, even as the low tier mount, it is well worth having to suffer the front lines for this. It was well worth it. The gliding on it, amazing. It looks exactly like what I would anticipate a metal Pegasus to look like. Even though I know it's not a metal Pegasus, but it completely gives me that feeling. All right. Let me see if there's any comments. I doubt it, but it's amazing. Was really good. Was worth it every day of the week. was so fucking worth it. It was worth every minute of this to go in here in PvP. Funny thing about it is, if I was the PvP in Elder Scrolls right now, I'd probably get quite a bit of viewers. And to be honest with you, I don't care that the players want to stick with something. If they like that and they're happy with it, so be it. I'm doing me. I'm having fun. I'm having more than fun. I'm having a blast. Like I said, not ideal situations in every game, and every game can improve. One of the depressing things I like literally was watching earlier today was Rift, and I went poking into the forums, and like so many people are a little upset with the PvP in Rift and how it's just gotten to be the way it is. Because Rift PvP in its beginning stages was immaculate. It was phenomenal, right? There were broken bullshit associated with Rift PvP. And don't get me wrong, they needed to fine tune some of that stuff. But incentivizing it, keeping players, the gaps between the ranking systems, between gear, the ranking system itself, it was probably one of my most fun moments besides World of Warcraft PvP. Like when I left WoW, though I didn't leave WoW and think to myself, what am I going to do for PvE? That wasn't what was on my mind. It literally was the least of my problems, or the least of my worries. The problem when I left World of Warcraft was, what if I get into a game that I have nothing to do for PvE, and then I'm going to do PvP? Because that's where I'm going to be at. That's where I'm going to be playing some of my filler content. And what happens when the PvP sucks? And that's every MMO, hardcore MMOer's worst fears. And when I left World of Warcraft and I went to Rift, I was happy that I left a really good standing MMO for another good MMO that had really good PvP to it. I was really happy with that. But when I went to Elder Scrolls, I only PvP casually, like 5 hours a week or something. And, you know, I build the builds to have functionality in PvP. And then I got into Battlegrounds, which I'm a huge Battleground junkie, like in Guild Wars 2, and, you know, whatever. But I'm a big Battleground junkie. Huge BG junkie. You know, I don't give a fuck about death matches. Fuck death matches, okay, but I'm all about strategic elements. Like this game, it's pretty much kind of like a death match, except you're trying to get score. You're trying to get to a score, and every person has a set amount of points contributed to the score, and then you pick up points. And it's like, it's kind of like a death match, but a small whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, it's all about the points. But I'm huge into Battlegrounds. And when I came to Final Fantasy XIV, I heard horror stories about the PvP, but I was like, I played worse. And that was my point. It's like, I played worse than this. And it has its fundamentals. It's here. It's like, there's things that you can do in PvP here. But it needs some work, man. So if you're noticing, we're losing. We're all waiting for openings. God dang it, get up here. I hate ASTs as healers. They're not that good. Most likely it's going to be a loss. They're good for PvE, but PvP, they have problems. You need players who know how to play an AST. If they come in here leveling an AST, most likely you're going to lose. Another problem we have, get this fucker out of the way. Lost. It just takes something that simple. So they've already got their 600 points. They killed them as many people as they needed to acquire their 600 points. Boom, they're out. The problem, like I said, once again, it just comes down to players knowing how to play. But healers are just, they're one of those things that need to be present. Once again, I'm not opposed to it. But once again, you also see the difference between someone like the AST versus someone like the White Mage. White Mage has a lot more burst damage, and they need to take into consideration, like, let me say, for example, League of Legends. League of Legends, the way their e-game system rules go, they can knock out certain legends, right? The opposing team has. They have a select amount to take certain support classes or whatever classes and bench them, called benching them. And then that forces the other team to select another legend. So they can't pick this legend, that legend, or this legend. And that team their team makeup might consist of a certain number of legends. And if they don't have familiarity with the other legends, then, oh shit, the other team has the advantage. So it's all about your familiarity and the functionality of that class or that job or that legend or whatever. So all of a sudden, when you have something as strong as the White Mage and the AST lacks in comparison to his burst heals, you can't select to bench a White Mage. A player playing a White Mage is a player playing a White Mage. Its strength is all in its direct heals. Where it lacks is what? Its buffing capability. AST, if you can get the buffs off, you throw out the buffs, then all of a sudden, boom, players are just beating the shit out of everybody. So you're taking the pro at a very, very risky position of not being able to heal as effectively. This is kind of where I'm drawn at, because it's like strategy in this game. I can see why it has a presence in the e-games on Feast. I get it. But it has some little hiccups. Like, it's doable. It's doable, but it's not as engaging in PvP that I've ever had. So it's not like going into World of Warcraft Battlegrounds or going into Rift Battlegrounds. I hate to say, even Elder Scrolls Battlegrounds has better fundamentals associated because it has objective but still, feasible results. Unless, a player exploits broken mechanics, which games have that. Every game has a class that has some broken ass bullshit associated with it. ESO, it's shield stacking or certain sets. In World of Warcraft, it was certain abilities that you couldn't, like a shaman priest or shamans. Shamans were a pain in the ass because you couldn't get to them directly because of the the totems. The totems were always a pain in your butt. Being able to kill a a mage at one time when you kept getting sheeped or CC'd locked was a pain in the ass. So every game has had that. Where in Rift it was squirreling, squirreling somebody or mezzing somebody. Every game has a mechanic that gets frustrating. Players will exploit broken features. That's what they do. That's what players do. Players want broken mechanics. Why? Because they can win. They don't give a shit if it's cheap. They want the win. In the Elder Scrolls, there was no skill associated in PvP. Everybody's like, oh, you don't have the skill. I'm like, what skill? There is no skill. It's all about cheats. It's all about exploiting broken mechanics in Elder Scrolls. The more it's broken, the more you look like a god. And it's like, that's a problem because it's not being fixed. It's not being addressed. Like, it's here, and that's the problem with most devs in most games, is it's like if something's overpowered or if something's broken, it doesn't get adjusted accordingly. Why? Because PvP's always put on a back burner. And now we see this pretty scary phenomenon happening throughout the gaming industry where MMO PvP is being put on the back burner more and more and more, and players are reaching other places for their PvP fixes. And I remember at one time, majority of your hardcore PvPers were MMOers, but that's not the case anymore. Now you have games like Fortnite and these other battle royale games taking over. Why? Because the MMO community, the MMO companies are failing. They're failing at keeping PvP, engaging. Like Cypher PK the other day ago posted a video, what if Fortnite, did something like Battlegrounds? Because he admitted, the Battle Royale is not engaging. It's popular, but it's not engaging. It's not stimulating to the PvPer. It's just, kill, get the best ratings, but there's nothing there more than that. And you guys can go watch this. And I give it up to Cypher. I'm glad he's doing so good. I'm glad he left Elder Scrolls. I'm glad he's a talented young man. He deserves his fame. He deserves his spotlight. But go watch his video because it's what is happening in PvP. It is the problem with the PvP community. Gaming companies keep putting PvP on the back burner. But PvP, and I've said this time and time again, PvP draws in the crowd. Excuse me. My throat's really dry. PvP draws them in. It brings them in. It makes people want to play that game. But when players realize that PvP isn't being attended to, they leave. And what's the first thing they do? They're looking for a new PvP game. PvEers will PvE in a game, raid, and so on and so forth. But what do they do when they're in between content and they've acquired their best in slot or whatever? They're basically PvPing to fill in the time. They're not PvPers, but they're PvPing to fill in the time. So that's the problem. That's the problem with MMO PvP these days, is companies are failing. They fail to realize what it takes to maintain PvP, and that's functionality. Players want functionality. They want something competitive, something incentivizing, and something functional. That's it. If you can do those three things, you can sustain your game for years, so long as you can do three things, and that's it. But when players realize that there's nothing to chase for, or there's no functionality behind a game, and there's broken bullshit, nobody's going to want to play it. Nobody, not even your hardcore fans, will stand behind your product. for too long. They'll leave. You know, they'll leave sooner or later. So you have to maintain those three things to get PvP. You know, I remember, it all came down to Ultima Online being my first fix. It was my first taste at open world PvP, and I was hooked. To this day, I've never found an open world PvP game like Ultima Online. And it's so outdated you can't play it anymore. But you always wanted it. You always asked for it. You always gritted your teeth like, I want open world PvP with consequences. The reward was looting players' corpses. Getting as much. And a lot of people were like, well, the survival games are like that. But it doesn't. The problem with survival games is you're leeching off of, you know, players that are under-geared or so on and so forth. Survival games are a fad. I feel bad for Amazon that they're coming out with this new world survival game. I hope it's not a survival game, because if it is, they just wasted millions of dollars. Millions of dollars if it's a survival game. If Amazon developed a survivor game, and let's say if it has PvP, they fucked up. Survival games have a disadvantage going to it. Ultima Online didn't. Ultima Online, you could relatively get geared cheap. Right? Gear broke, but you could gear up pretty cheap. So it wasn't like I bumped into a player and said, oh my god, look at this noob, I'm going to totally roast his ass. And then all of a sudden I kill him because he has shit-ass gear. No. It was like, okay, he's a cloth wearer, you know, he's got a fireball, or people wear halberds, hiding their, you know, their armor type. There were a lot of things associated when you measured up in PvP and Ultima Online. You know, pets, if you saw pets out, that was a big key indicator, you know, that you were going to get attacked by pets. That was scary. You didn't fuck with that. There was a lot of things when you measured up PvP. Same thing with Star Wars Galaxies. Star Wars Galaxies had a really good PvP system. You know, the Galactic Civil War, the GCW. But the problem of it was there was a broken mechanic with headshots, with rangers and snipers and shit. Other than that, the PvP was phenomenal. It was great. Even with Jedi. Jedi could, you know, give anybody a run for their money, but good TKs and good bounty hunters always could take out a Jedi. So, to me, there doesn't have to be balance. There just has to be functionality. There has to be counter. There has to be saying, hey, this one class can take out these classes, but this class counters that class. Or these abilities counter those abilities. Or this is how you put in counterplay. Elder Scrolls has fundamentals that remind me of all the other games in the past. It's done by very talented developers, but there are a couple minor things that could make the game better. Performance being one of them. And then trying to, you know, get the glitches out of there. But it'll, you know, that's what pisses you off. Because you like a game so much, you see the potential, and you see where its holes are, and you get pissed. This game, same thing. It's like, it has potential, but you see where the flaws are. And you know, everybody talks about it. Everybody talks about the same shit. So, I don't know, man. You know, food for thought. Food for thought. I'm going to end this stream. But I'm going to leave it off with that because, you know, nothing's set perfect. Nothing is. But at the end of the day, what's a game trying to be? What is it? What's it trying to be? Can it ever be that? And as a player, you need to ask yourself that. What are you looking for in a game? What's this game give you? Because if it doesn't, like many others before, they're going to lose the best of the best players and content creators. Any game will. Why? Because they failed keeping those players. And with that, you lose other players. It's a chain reaction. You lose one, others will follow. Okay, there you guys have it. Once again, I'm Mystic Raven. This is Mystic's MMOs. As always, thank you. Have a nice day.